It is Friday, October 22nd. Let's talk PlayStation. Welcome back, everyone. As per usual, let us start with our PlayStation Plus reminder. The October games are still available, so go ahead and download those or add them to your library. Get that done. We should find out next week or shortly after next week what the November titles will be. But for our first story, let's talk about PS5 System Software Update 21.02, 03.04, and yeah, it's another small one. So we had one not too long ago, right? 1 or 2 weeks ago, and that was the same deal where it's the typical improvement to system performance, and we can't really see anything in particular as to what it does. So for now, that's it. Nothing too exciting here. Now, while we're talking about small updates, one other small update that we did get, and I believe this was a server-side change, so not related to the firmware update that we just talked about, but I believe this was deployed server-side. Over on the PS5's PlayStation Store, you might have noticed that when you actually open the store now, 1 or 2 clicks down, you can actually see a true horizontal row of new games being released chronologically. So instead of scrolling from left all the way to right, tabbing over 4 or 5 times past deals, collections, and then to browse, and that's where you can sort from recent or not recent or a bunch of filters, right? That's usually what you had to do to see that true chronological list of brand new games, because almost always when you boot up the store on, and this has been a problem since PS3, right? PS3, 4, 5, since the PS3's last major redesign of the PS Store, so it's that what's the best way to describe it, right? Where all the menu items are on the left, and then there's large panels on the right. So across PS3, 4, and now 5, you had to scroll from left to right to see that true list of chronological games. Every time you boot up the store, you're typically seeing a bunch of large panels, and those panels could be showcasing, it's usually like marketing deals, right? So games that are either not released yet, free-to-play stuff, games that did release, but it was like, 3-4 weeks ago, and it's like, okay, I'm trying to find, game X, Y, and Z where it just came out today. So it's actually kind of strange that we're just now getting something like this. I think this is actually a huge improvement, so it's much easier now, or at least much more convenient, to go to the PS Store and PS5, and you can actually see what did in fact come out within the past, 1 or 2 weeks, and it's right there. It's not too hard to find now. Now, another update that we just got, and this one's only available in Japan and Canada, so not worldwide just yet, and they're still testing it currently, although I would assume this is going to be available everywhere relatively soon. It's for the PlayStation mobile app, and what this is when you take a screenshot or a video on PS5, or I would assume PS4 as well, any screenshot from the Create button, or, no, I believe this is only on PS5. So only from the Create button, and also if you, say, record a video that's 3 minutes long or under 3 minutes, non-4K, that'll auto-upload to the cloud, and when you turn on the PlayStation mobile app, you can then access that content and pull it to the phone, where you can either save it directly to your camera roll, or you can send it to a friend on PSN right from the mobile app, so it's a lot easier to maybe text on that and send a picture. Or you could also just post it directly to social media, same deal there. You can just easily type something out, because it's kind of a pain with the on-screen keyboard on PS5 if you try to send a lot of content from the console directly. But essentially this will auto-upload. You can access it for 14 days. If you do nothing with it, then it will auto-delete, and yeah, it seems like a pretty handy feature, because it's also a pain to try and get that content off of the console in the first place. You need a USB drive, an external hard drive, and that's not a huge problem. I think a lot of people, tend to have that stuff on hand, but it's just, when you have a lot of your own devices that are already using a lot of cloud tech with very simple quality of life things like, your save files on PlayStation 4 and 5, like PS Plus, right? Or your mobile phone, the desktop environment, there's a lot of cloud services nowadays, so whenever you have to drag out a USB drive or something and mess with files, it can be a bit cumbersome. So this is just a nice little handy feature, and I would hope this is going to be available everywhere relatively soon after this beta phase in Japan and Canada. Next up, we finally have a trailer for the Uncharted movie, and I think it's probably worth saying right now, I'm not sure if I can actually display the trailer to you as I'm talking about this. I'll probably do a test upload to see if I can get away with it, so you can watch it while I'm talking about it. If not, I'll just use screenshots, but at least the trailer's out there so you can watch it on your own time, and it's about 2 minutes long, and I mean, I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's okay. I know this is something where there's a lot of harsh criticism or opinions out there, and I'm not going to do that for a movie that I haven't seen just yet. Although I don't watch movies too often, so when I do, I usually enjoy them, right? I think there's a lower level of tolerance for people that watch a lot of movies, and so they expect a really good experience, and especially if you've played the games before and you want this to be something that it's not, that's going to be disappointing. And I mean, when you watch the trailer, the typical Uncharted quips, set pieces, action, it's all there. So it looks like a great watch, to be honest. I can see where people still have the problem of like, okay, Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. They can't separate them from, or they can't see them as Nathan Drake and Victor Sullivan, which, remember, this is supposed to be an origin story, so to speak, where it's a younger Nathan Drake, a younger Sully, and that's why they look the way they do, where it just looks like Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. And the thing is, if they did recast this and say, let's say they threw out the whole younger Nathan Drake idea, right? That's what they're doing. That's why the movie's presented this way. But let's say this trailer was exactly the same, but the premise was, hey, this is just normal Nathan Drake, normal Sully, and they cast people that look like Nathan Drake and look like Sully. I think there'd be a much more positive reaction to this, because the trailer by itself looks exactly like Uncharted. I'm sure it's a fun movie to watch maybe one time and not again, but that's where I sit. You have to see it to make a judgment, and I guess I won't do that until it comes out, and that should be the case for most people, right? But on the first initial trailer watch, it looks like Uncharted, but it's still really tough to get over the casting or the premise itself. I can see where people are coming from there. Looks like a solid first attempt, though, for PlayStation Productions. This is our first trailer of our major PS production project, and I'm excited to at least see what they're cooking up here. This will set a precedence for what we should be looking forward to with other movies and also the TV shows as well. For our next news story, PlayStation has recently confirmed their next major PC release, and it is none other than the 2018 God of War coming January 14th, 2022, available on the Epic Games Store and Steam. You can pre-order right now, and not too surprising. If anything, I am surprised that it's God of War so soon. I would have expected a few other games before God of War to get that PC treatment, although I think the seal is pretty much broken out at this point when you see things like Horizon, Days Gone, which are new IP, but also Uncharted, and that's the established IP, which that one's still coming also in 2022, but we're expecting a PS5 version before that. That's the Legacy Collection, which will include the Lost Legacy and also Uncharted 4. Now, if you are interested in the PC release, we can just quickly go over some of the enhancements that you should be expecting. The PlayStation blog does note, our PC version includes a wide range of graphical presets and options, so you can fine-tune your visual experience based on your setup. From high-resolution shadows and improved screen space reflections to enhancement to the ambient occlusion pipeline with GTAO and SSDO, God of War on PC can create striking visual quality unique to the platform. They'll also be supporting NVIDIA's DLSS, so that's going to be fantastic for people with probably more of a modest setup. You won't have to sacrifice visual fidelity nearly as much. Also, ultra-wide support. Supports keyboard, mouse, various controllers, but also, as expected, DualShock 4 and DualSense as well. Now, it should go without saying, but if you're upset about this, then you have to start letting this go when it comes to the PC releases. This is very clearly part of Sony's business, and it's just something where you can easily argue that it's for the PlayStation bottom line, and that's what it is, right? I mean, we saw Sony be very careful with this over the years, with smaller games, slightly bigger games, and now their most coveted IP, and they were very careful doing that, making sure that this initiative doesn't cannibalize or hurt the traditional console model. But as we've explained before, and the best way to explain it is PC is more of an agnostic platform. That's why when you see somebody say like, this is great, it's available for more people, and that very much is the case, the counter argument falls apart of like, oh well, then why don't they ship it on Xbox or Switch or whatever the case may be, right? Why don't they just release it everywhere if it means more people get to play it? You don't want to release it on direct competing platforms where you're competing in the same space, right? Which would be the console model. PC is this sort of blanketed storefront where there's no manufacturer with their skin in the game there, and where they really benefit from it, right? You are speaking more to an audience that have actively chosen not to buy a console, and sure, maybe you can get one or two people to go out and buy a console, but they won't be engaged console customers. Why not just release the game there, and you'll be able to sell a lot more copies, and these are going to be highly profitable games, as we've seen seen with Horizon, as Sony disclosed, and I'm sure this is going to be also highly profitable. This is honestly a good segue to our next news story, which is that the PlayStation blog also confirmed God of War shipped 19.5 million copies on PS4, which is a staggering amount. That's certainly on the higher end of these major PlayStation releases, where these PS4 titles are doing 10, 15 plus million. Nearly 20 million, that's the upper echelon of how high some of these titles for Sony, how high they get. And a game that's at 19 million copies, I can't see it doing another 3, 4 million. Yes, you can ship it on PC and do another 3, 4, 5 million. I think that would be like a safe minimum, if anything. We're talking a multi-million figure on PC alone, right? And since the game is principally, the full development of the game was done on PS4, so now this is more of a port job to PC. That's why these releases are so highly profitable. And as a PlayStation player, you played it 3 years ago, you're getting the sequel next year. If the way Sean Layden described it, where he doesn't see them doing day-and-date releases, which even that could be more of a mid to long-term future. Maybe eventually they'll get there, but right now you're still very much in a priority landscape where if you're playing on PlayStation, you're going to get these games first and foremost. And I mean, you can't really argue that the game is better on PC years later, right? Because you can make the case for console games too, where if you buy it day one, you're kind of getting shafted once a Game of the Year edition comes out, or a complete edition, definitive edition, or a new generation version, right, where you're playing a PS4 game and a PS5 director's cut comes out. We're there now. That's what PlayStation is doing. They're doing the PC stuff, mobile, more multiplayer games, PlayStation productions, and all these things are running concurrently to the traditional console model, where PS5 so far is wildly successful. There's not really much to be mad about nowadays, and if you are on PC, then you've got one incredible game coming your way. It's totally worth playing, although I doubt you're watching this video if you primarily play on PC, although I do know sometimes people watch this channel when they primarily play Xbox, Nintendo, or whatever, because they like this as a PlayStation source. So if you are here, thank you, and yes, play God of War, absolutely, January 14th. Moving on to our next news story, we have a very interesting debacle in the PlayStation 5 Faceplate saga, or anime, is that what we want to call it here? Because if you remember, towards launch, we had PS5 come out, and Sony sent a cease and desist letter to the one company called PlayStation 5, where they were selling aftermarket PS5 faceplates, and they had to reorganize to bring those faceplates back to the market. And then that was really the only legal action that we saw, because since then the floodgates are basically open, where a bunch of companies are putting out faceplates, and China now has 1 or 2 factories making a bunch of these things. And dbrand was one of those companies where they sourced their own specialized faceplate and did some unique symbols on the inside, where we all know the inside of the PS5 faceplate, you can see very tiny PlayStation buttons, but dbrand had a unique little legal friendly spin to it, where they're sort of like hazardous PlayStation symbols, and they thought that was going to be an okay enough change to the PlayStation property to be able to release these. And their PR is also very abrasive, like that's their shtick, to say F off Sony or whatever, come sue us. And well, they did receive a cease and desist, I think recently. They didn't actually date their letter, but they were basically told to stop selling these faceplates, which by and large, it was not because they told them to sue us, but rather Sony now actually has a registered trademark or a registered patent for the faceplate design, right? Principally what the PS5 faceplate is, and I think also the mechanism that locks into the console itself. I believe that's what they also registered for a patent, so that's approved, at least in Canada, where dbrand operates out of. And so that's where dbrand didn't think that Sony was going to actually do that, and so they had to pull down their dark plates, as they called them. They were selling black face plates, and I think there were other colors as well. No, they wouldn't be called dark plates in that case, would they? But the point is, they took it down for a few days, and then they came back with a new design where they actually changed it, I would say, a dramatic amount, because they basically gave the PS5 faceplate a haircut, and they also put vents on the side where that large fan sits, and now they're selling those, which the pre-orders already are, I think, completely sold out, or they're at wave 4 or 5. I haven't checked in a few days, but yeah, that's what their answer was, because they're changing the design of the faceplate to kind of skirt around the legality of infringing on Sony's faceplate design. And they look weird. I don't know. I mean, I think at a minimum we can say that it actually is beneficial to have vents where the fans are. So if you don't know, if you take the fans or if you take the plates off of PS5, actually you do see a reduction in operating temperatures, like 4 or 5 degrees. I'm not sure it's a lot, but the plastic does act as kind of an insulator and it keeps heat in, unsurprisingly. I mean, if you had the board completely exposed, you could probably get it down even more. But I mean, that's not what consoles are for, right? Or that's not what PC cases are for. I mean, you do have to have it enclosed in some way, so we can't really argue that, like, you know, you should play your PS5 with the plates off. It's still okay to play with the faceplates on. It's just if you do actually take them off, or if you at least vent the fans, then in theory you should see a reduction in operating temperatures. So if you are into the design that dbrand has come up with, then maybe you want to buy this. I don't know, but it is interesting. So I think the big caveat here also is that this might tell us that Sony's finally gearing up for their own version of faceplates, which may or may not be, you know, sold separately, or maybe they'll just release a black PS5, which would be kind of annoying considering how easy it is to take the faceplates off to begin with. You have to figure that's how they're going to approach it, maybe right from PlayStation Direct, so there might not be a whole lot of availability in store because they just take up so much shelf space. But we had the black DualSense, the black headset is shipping very soon, and so this seems like a natural evolution, and that might be why now that they have this patent registered, that that's what they'll end up doing. But what a very strange situation that dbrand themselves got themselves into. But also, like, again, the floodgates are open. Like, China's making a ton of these things, so I don't know how Sony's going to regulate or somehow try to control the aftermarket, because it's really not going to easily happen. Next up, for the month of September, we learned from MPD sales data that PS5 was number one in terms of not only dollar sales, but also units sold. And that is a pretty big accomplishment, because dollar sales is not too surprising. Sony's done that on a few occasions where PS5 is inherently a costly machine. You know, $499 for the disc console, and most machines that are being sold are that model. But unit sales, this is where Nintendo Switch was on a 33-month streak, and PlayStation finally outsold Switch. And that's really just, it boils down to how many consoles Sony manufactured, because we're still in a place right now where between both PS5 models and Series X for Microsoft, however many they make is pretty much what they sell. So that's really what's been holding them back for the past 10, 11 months now, right? It's just how many can they make, because in theory Microsoft could also do the same. It's just they haven't made enough of them to at least see where it stops, right? Because once demand is met, that's where it's like, okay, you can make as many as you want, but if people aren't buying them, then you're not going to be able to outsell Switch or PlayStation, or, you know, whoever's going to be the front runner in that given situation. For Sony, at least, you kind of expect that if they were able to make enough of these things, the question keeps getting asked of, like, if they did make enough, how many would they really sell? Because this is already the most successful PlayStation console ever in terms of, you know, launch line sales. So they're doing great. Hopefully this bodes well for not only September, but also this month, and then going into November, December. That's going to be the holiday season, so you want stock to be as good as it possibly can be for that season. And that's where I would imagine Sony wanted to allocate a lot of stock for those particular months. So I'm guessing PS5 will be in a much better stock situation for the next 2 months, but maybe not, because that's also where most people are going to be trying to buy one as well. If you're still in the market for trying to buy a PS5, make sure to follow Wario64 on Twitter, turn on notifications, and also check out Jake Randall as well on Twitter. He does live streams and all that stuff to try and to help people secure units. He's done an amazing job so far as well. And there's various other Twitter accounts and websites you can follow for restock alerts. And if you're trying to get one, that's the best way to go about it. Next up, we have a very strange patent filed by Sony Interactive Entertainment, and it's for, it's called very straightforward. It says, spectators vote to bench players in a video game, which tells you that's what you can do. Even sometimes the titles are not a giveaway as to what the patent is for, but this would be in the context of a live stream, esports, Twitch, whatever you're watching, and spectators could, in theory, vote a player out of the game. Or they also mention that you could pay to remove a player, or you could vote to send a message or something and tell the player to, like, improve their their play, and it's just weird, right? But it's one of those many patents where, like, this is why 99% of the time these things never come to fruition. It's just so weird and abstract, but the very idea of Sony working on it behind the scenes to facilitate the functionality of it, whether it's a feature, a product, or whatever, they want to protect that core technology of what makes it work, and that's why they patented it. So they might, if they ever do end up using it, they have it, or they could license it out, and that's maybe another way that they're approaching it, or it's just something that they're researching, and they may never actually use it. And I would gather that's probably what this is, much like all the other patents that we've, all the wild patents that we've gone over throughout the years on this show. Building up the PS5, we had a lot of patents relating to an AI virtual assistant on the console, and one that you could speak to from the mobile app. Of course, we don't have that. Maybe it's still coming eventually through a system software update. But if I was a betting man, I would say that's probably also not going to happen either. Now, with all that said, it is time for Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway where one of you can win a $10 PSN code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I'll be contacting you very soon via email or Twitter, and if you would like to win a $10 PSN code, it's very easy. Follow the link down below. Supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and I'll announce the winner next week because I'm trying to help pay for your games. Those are all the stories that I want to talk about to you all from this past week. Our Tuesday video was a PS3 unboxing, 2 PS3s, ceramic white and satin silver. Gorgeous machines. I ordered those a while ago, and they took the place of a game collection update because I haven't been buying too many games lately, so that's why I got that. Probably do a game collection update next month. And then this coming Tuesday, probably more of a discussion piece that I would like to do at some point. And then November, of course, is when I hopefully will have this other video that I'm working on. Again, if you're on Twitter, you might have already seen what I'm doing. But that's it. That's all I've got for you. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you all next Friday.